Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the Trump trials is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It must be Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. And it's a pleasure to be back with you once again and have you join with me, share the weekly podcast. I may be the voice of wisdom, but I certainly find that I have the audience with amazing wisdom. So thank you all for participating, because so many of you drop off notes to me and call and advise me how to be better than I might be, and how to reconsider certain views that I have. So God bless you, and thank you for being a cohort on this exciting, I hope it's exciting for you. It's exciting for me, a podcast. Again, today we have a very esteemed, fabulous cohort in person here, Len Carter. As I mentioned to you in the past, is a genius. He graduated from the same school that I did, Harvard Business School. Like me, he graduated at the top of his class. Before that, he graduated as an engineer at Cornell, which is one of the top Ivy League schools. And after that, he took a master's in engineering at one of the great American schools, Stanford University. So he's a certified genius. But it's a delight to have him back, and I hope you enjoy his input. Before I launch into our current issues, current problems, current civic and politics and economics, and all of which tend to be depressing, often, or too depressing. The war's going on. I mean, the news is depressing. You know, it's not news unless it's very striking. If it's, I've never seen a headline in the New York Times. Some young lady graduated straight A, even though there are people that graduate that. She was also captain of her tennis team and president of the school, and we're delighted to announce that she received a scholarship to Oxford. That's good news. Nobody cares. Even when somebody donates $25 million or $50 million to a school, it used to make the front page, but now even that, it appears somewhere in the section of news that people rarely get to or read. So I don't have this program dealing with current events, this podcast, just to depress you, but to offset any depression you might get from this experience. I want to urge you, because my number one goal, more than informing you, more than giving you wisdom, is to make everyone in my audience, if I could, everybody in the world, happier and more content and just appreciate life more than you currently do. And we all have room for that. So before I launch into the discussion or the debate on the current issues and current disagreements, I want to recommend some behavior that will help you be hopefully happier. But before I even do that, I want to recommend, I wish I had this book early in my life when I was younger and could benefit from the wisdom that this happiness book, it's the best book on happiness I ever saw or am aware of. It's called Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And the subtitle is How to Be Happy No Matter What. So to launch this program, I would urge you to get a copy of this uh, inspiring book. And I promise that if you don't enjoy it, like it, appreciate it, I'll not only refund your purchase price, but I'll refund double your purchase price. Because so far, I haven't had, with that promise, I haven't had one person that didn't tell me it was worth many times what they paid for it, or it was one of the best gifts they ever got in their life. So I'm very proud of that. So I just want to give you a brief hint or a bit of wisdom or guidance on how to be happier. God gave us, we were privileged to achieve life in this world. And hopefully and thankfully, most of us are functioning without limitations of any kind. Unfortunately, some babies are born with all kind of, I don't want to say limitations, but it's even worse than limitations. But hopefully most everybody in this audience gets up in the morning and finds out that they have energy, that they're alive, that they can see. So the first thing I want to tell you is choose life. Choosing life means taking advantage of the fact that you were given this wonderful thing called life. And it's wonderful if you make it wonderful. As somebody said it famously, it's up to you. It's up to you. You're the boss. You decide what you think. So I want to urge you, think only positive things. Don't let your mind wander to negative things, depressing things. Make yourself happy. Nobody could make you happy. Others can make you miserable. Some people can add to your happiness. But you're the one that's in control, and it's your attitude. It's not what happens to you so much as how you react to what happens to you. We can't avoid the aggravation and the negatives and the disappointments and the failures and even the tragedies that occur in almost, I suspect, every human that lived some kind of decent number of years that didn't go through some horrendous experiences, certainly depressing experiences, uh, failures, whatever. So it's up to you to react to anything in a positive way, and so you choose how you're going to act, and also be loving and express your love to your kids, to your mate, your soulmate, to people in general, and to the extent that you can, smile, be upbeat all the time. People love to be around somebody who's happy, who's smiling, who's so. Without further ado, I'm telling you, if you get this book, it's 365 pages, one page every day with humor, with suggestions on how to be happier. And I insist, if you don't want to listen to yourself, listen to me. I'll come and get you if you don't. I want you to be happy. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't focus on any negatives. And with that, uh, let's launch into all the things that may make you unhappy, all the issues of the day. Hopefully, there's some good news.
Well, you're certainly right about news headlines. I mean, I don't remember a time when I heard or read about something like a big donation or a big charity event or something that was good. Instead, it's always another stabbing here, another person thrown on the subway tracks, another person, and then
Another bunch of
protests,
large number of people
the big
killed
news,
in wars.
Right. The big news is, students disrupting, or was it a Duke? Jerry Seinfeld was giving the keynote and got disrupted. I mean, so, instead.
All because it's through no fault of his own. He was born Jewish.
And his speech wasn't even about that.
No.
It was just about his.
And he's one of the most beloved characters that ever appeared on, actors that ever appeared on television. And notwithstanding that, the minute some of the students at Duke that were in attendance, the minute they found out that he was Jewish and he was this, what do you call the keynote speaker, or no, when you are given the opportunity to be they don't call it keynote
it's
speaker. Anyway, the main speaker at graduation, a bunch of the students got up and walked out, even though they may have loved his program over the years, his
commencement speech.
What?
He was a commencement
no, they
speaker.
Another one. They call it or not commencement. What's the word? You're given the anyway.
He.
You can't find a word.
Well, just talks about he was a commencement speaker, which is the keynote person at a graduation. But yes, instead of anything that someone could have found that was good, and it can't be the case that nothing good happens in the world and only bad things happen in the world. It's just, unfortunately, that's what makes news. Like what gets the highlight of the Trump trial, which is one of our first area of discussion, was about, I think, probably the most tuned in, watched, observed was Stormy Daniels, because everyone was interested in what exactly happened between her and Trump, and did he wear a condom, did he do this, did he do that, what was he wearing?
It's gotta be bad news or
salacious.
Or salacious.
So, and what that has to do with the case is not a lot. In fact, I guess that's the first thing is when you think about all these witnesses that have been before the court, if the crime, alleged crime, is falsifying business records. What's the purpose? I mean, I believe Trump and his defense team have admitted to paying her the money, and it's not a crime to pay someone money to be subjected to a confidentiality agreement or a gag order or whatever you want to call it. The crime is if you write someone a check and in the field of the memo or wherever your expense item says legal expense, and it really is hush money expense, if that's its own category.
To influence an election,
And so that's the second part. So the first part is just a misdemeanor, really, is falsifying business records. All right, so you coded what you paid Cohen as legal expense, but it really wasn't. So I guess that's what Cohen's testimony was all about. That yes, I got this. I paid her the $130,000, and I was supposed to be paid $450,000 over the year, or whenever. But I knew I wasn't going to get. I would give them bills for whatever, but it was for reimbursement. So I guess they're trying to bring that out to make it clear that this was the purpose of the payment, but it was coded as something else. And that, falsifying business records is a misdemeanor. It's not something that I believe is even typically prosecuted, which, to everyone outside the courtroom there, including I saw Mike Johnson, the speaker, and a bunch of other Republicans, probably others vying for vice presidency.
Or cabinet positions.
Right. Or just being in his good graces so that he's not primaried, so that you still have a job. That's a stretch. I mean,
they're sitting behind him even though Melania is not, and only one member of his family, his second son, is in attendance, which is really a sad commentary for Trump, in the sense that any serious indictment of somebody that you love, the soulmate inevitably is there to support him, sitting in the audience.
You'd think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's traditionally that's what happens. And here, even with the worst mafioso, the wives are often there supporting. And Melania hasn't shown up, and none of the other kids have shown up. So either he doesn't have a great love relationship with them, or maybe they can't take the torture.
But I mean,
but to make up for it, all of the possible vice presidential choices, those vying to be vice president or have major positions in his administration, are there rooting him on, and even addressing his difficulty because of the gag order. He can't say nasty things about the jury or the judge or the.
We can trash the judge. He's not allowed to trash the jury or witnesses.
Or witnesses.
Or the judge family.
Or the judge or the judge's family.
I think the judge he can trash. The judge, because he keeps saying he's conflicted, he's this, he's that. The judge's family he can't, and the jury and witnesses. But
and
so let's.
And members of the jury's family.
Right. Anyone related to.
Yeah, he can't do anything that might inspire violence.
Right.
So, but I'm saying, since he can't do it, these people behind him that are vying for vice president or cabinet, at the end of it, they walk out. They don't testify, but they walk out and they say, I can't believe that judge is taking this seriously. Why he doesn't it's clearly political. It's because he's a Republican. All kind of reasons uh, to defend Trump and say he shouldn't be there. There's no reason for it. This indictment should be dismissed, even though a grand jury listened to the evidence and found that it's justified.
Right. It was all brought about by Biden, even though the grand jury had nothing to do with.
And also to prevent them, he's running for president to prevent them from being out there campaigning and instead sitting in a
icebox
court all day.
An icebox, as he says. So let's look at it in two pieces. The first is the misdemeanor, falsifying business records, and then what makes it a felony is this, kind of novel view where they're saying
what Cohen went to prison for.
But it's covering, using its business, falsifying business records to cover up another crime.
Right.
And so that's what elevates it to felony level.
That's what Cohen, acting on behalf of Trump, he says, and it seems like, Trump himself said early on, he said, I could go walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, kill somebody, and they would still love me, so but that's what constitutes a crime, because it happened in anticipation of the imminent election, and the goal was to just forestall that scandal of his relationship with her and paying her off, and he claims, well, it was to avoid his wife being aggravated.
Which if we're true, is okay. If it's in connection with the election, it's not okay.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a fine. I mean, could you find beyond reasonable doubt that the purpose of this was related to the election and not possibly related to him not wanting to be embarrassed by his family? See, then there's only one person who can really answer that. Trump.
Yeah.
It's in his head. So he's not going to answer, even if the real answer was for the election. I mean, so I guess that's the whole point of all these witnesses, like this evidence that came out through Cohen's testimony that said when Trump found out that Stormy Daniels was coming forth, he's like, oh, this is going to be a disaster, he said, for the campaign. He didn't say, Melania's going to leave me. He said it's going to be a disaster for the campaign. So what does that say his frame of mind was? Sounds to me like it was related to the campaign, not related to embarrassment by his family.
Also, he said, according to Cohen, that he just has to get it delayed beyond the election,
because if I win, I'm the president. If I lose, I don't care. Or I don't care. He said, I don't care.
I'll make it go away.
Or he doesn't care, because I mean, it's not like this hasn't been the case before.
So in other words, he's saying, if afterwards my wife finds out, or for any reason my kids find out, that he could live with.
Right.
But he can live with after he made the statement on.
So I mean, that's
radio. What was it? Access
Hollywood. Yeah.
What?
Access Hollywood tape with
Hollywood
groping the women.
He said I could walk up to any woman and reach under her garments.
Right. But that was just a character indictment and not a criminal indictment.
But he said because this came right after that would bury his. He said men might not mind it.
Yeah.
Might
think it's
identify
cool.
with it, but women would He'd lose all the women's.
Right. He underestimated himself.
Why?
Because it didn't happen. He thought it would be really bad, the Access Hollywood tape. And it didn't seem
No, but he thought the follow on after that it would be.
So do you think
it's cause of the? They said because of the Access Hollywood, what he said, and this occurring right afterwards.
Double blow?
Right.
Do you think if that happened, it would have made a difference? Suppose Stormy Daniels refused to agree to be hushed, and she came out
it
in
very
the newspaper.
well could have, because the vote was so close. As a matter of fact,
maybe
Hillary got more votes than he did.
Yeah.
So anything could have, any incident could have, although right now all the negatives of 91 indictments and all the accusations against him and all the people that are speaking up against him, congressmen, senators, national figures, doesn't impact him. He's leading Biden in all the important areas, and 5 out of the 6 swing states that make a difference. So nothing impacts him.
Yeah, now, but you're right. Now,
not even making
but who knows? But maybe in 2016,
not
he could
even
have.
making a statement 1 minute and 5 minutes later making the exact opposite statement, and nobody cares. He's brilliant. He's a true super salesman.
So if given that the evidence is what it is, but it still kind of relies on that state of thought. How do you think it turns out? Guilty, acquittal, or a hung jury?
Well, let me tell you one thing that's interesting. Cohen's lawyer, famous lawyer, he represented Bill Clinton, during his episode, his legal
impeachment.
Forget his name. I dealt with his sister. His sister was a Wall Street broker, analyst. So anyway, today he said, Trump has said over and over again, he's going to testify. And so far, it would be nice if he kept his word. But so far, it doesn't seem like he's scheduled to testify. So whether he'll be found guilty, my view is that there will be at least one out of 12 that will find him not guilty, and therefore you need unanimity for him to be found guilty. And once you get a hung jury, one person or more that doesn't go along with the verdict, it's dismissed. It's called a hung jury, and it can be brought up again.
Yeah, they can retry it. They usually, sure.
Yeah,
they can. It's not an acquittal. It just means that they couldn't come to a decision, and then if it's up to the prosecutor, if the prosecutor wants to retry the case, it does. Most of the time, in most hung juries, they don't do it because it's not worth the resources to do it again. It's interesting this case, whether they'll do it or not. They may.
In this case, it's unique because all he wants to do is make sure it doesn't happen before the election.
Right.
Because if he gets elected, all of these indictments will go away.
Well,
although not the state,
2 of the 4.
Not the state.
This one won't go away because it's brought by the Manhattan DA.
I wouldn't bet against that.
And the one in Georgia won't go away.
I wouldn't bet against that. He may not be able to dismiss it because it's not a federal, but he might arrest the district attorney and the other the district attorney who was compromised by
Fonnie Willis,
Georgia. She was having an affair
Yep.
with a lawyer. So if he gets elected, he won't be tried again.
He could be, but it remains to be seen.
No, I mean, I'm not pulling this out of the air. I'm saying, given what happened on January 6th, he could conceivably arrest the judge, the whole jury. It would go away, in my book. But the question you asked, do I think he will be indicted or found guilty? The answer is, even though there's tons of evidence, there's enough questions about Cohen's, even though there's confirmation and they don't even need Cohen as a witness to establish his goal in this behavior that is criminal according to the laws. I don't think he's ever going to serve time.
So first let's talk about the other trials, and then we'll come back to the question of retribution and what would happen. What do you think might happen to these prosecutions if he is elected? So, because there are the 4 different ones. So let's move on to talk about the second, I think, most interesting one, which is the January 6th insurrection case, Jack Smith's case, federal case, which is now hinges in part on what the Supreme Court will rule regarding presidential immunity. To what extent, if any, should or does a president have immunity? They heard arguments of the last few weeks, and now, I don't know, the end of next month or July, sometime they're supposed to rule on that. So, first, what do you think? What do you think?
Even if they rule against Trump, it's going to be so late in the game that there won't be time to establish a trial.
That's likely.
So he'll still be able to possibly win and get rid of it.
So on the question of presidential immunity, 2 parts. What do you think it should be, and then how do you think this court will rule? Because those are 2 potentially different things. But what do you think? Like, if you were the judge, or if you were hearing this, how do you see presidential immunity? Because it is, it's an important issue, not just for Trump, because every president faces this, and it's really important because presidents have to sometimes make tough decisions. Truman dropped a bomb and killed 100,000 people. That's a tough decision. Should he go to jail for doing that?
If I listen and adopt what my longtime friend, former friend, Donald J. Trump argues, that every president should be immune for whatever they do while they're in office, because they got to be free to act without concern for the consequences. So if you support that view, then the Supreme Court could find that he's immune, although some of the sins that he committed occurred after he left the presidency. But I think in his view, it's extended beyond the time. So I can't believe that, that the Supreme Court, even with the bias they have towards, favorable bias they have towards Trump, because so many of them were appointed by Trump or predecessors that were Republican. that are very strongly behind Trump. But if it were to be ruled on debate, and we've been through 46 different presidents, or maybe those include second terms or something. But, more than 30 presidents in the course of our history, and none of them seem to have a problem by the limitation. Maybe Nixon did, but they carry on their work and they don't worry about
well,
immunity.
I think the nuance becomes where presidential immunity in the context of official job activities, because I don't even think Trump would say, maybe he would, but I don't think Trump would say if he shot his wife while president, he would be immune from prosecution.
I think he would say
he might.
No, because
but it has to be within the context of official duty.
He would say.
He says what he was doing on January 6th was in context of official duty.
He would argue that maybe he could be tried after he left the presidency, but while he was serving, it would interfere with his ability to carry out.
No, I think that would be true. I think that's true. And I think he would be right, because the DOJ said you can't indict a sitting president.
Yeah, so there you go.
It doesn't mean that they're not, because you can still be guilty through impeachment and conviction by the Senate, and then after you're not a sitting president, subject to crime. Yeah. So I think in that context, a crime committed outside of the official acts of presidents, I think would be deferred and should be deferred until, I don't know. I mean, if you commit murder, I guess, I don't know. That's a tough one.
When was the last time
I don't know.
President was impeached? Even Nixon wasn't impeached.
Well, Trump twice and Clinton before that.
No, actually impeached.
They were impeached. They weren't convicted.
Well, they did. And you said if they're impeached, they lose their.
If they're convicted.
Yeah, so I'm saying
they have to be convicted by the Senate.
Yeah, I'm saying. So, to me, impeached. That the event that is important in impeachment is for the Senate to go along.
It was a different thing. Impeachment is like an indictment. It's an accusation of a crime.
It's like a censure. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, it's the first part of. It's just like how the criminal justice system works. You're indicted and then you're tried.
Tell me one time where a president has been impeached and lost the presidency. I don't remember.
Never. But that's not what we're talking about. How many presidents have been impeached?
Yeah.
And the answer is
doesn't
several.
Mean anything.
Well, no,
it's like if a president was censured.
They were. I'm not saying it did or didn't. We're just talking about whether they were impeached.
You say he would lose his job
if he were convicted by the Senate.
But it never happened.
Doesn't mean it couldn't.
It could, absolutely.
And that's what the job of the Senate's supposed to be. High crimes and misdemeanors. If they didn't deem January 6th or Clinton's perjury, they didn't deem that a high crime, so he was acquitted.
It didn't happen in 200 years. It's unlikely.
I don't agree with that. I think it depends on the crime. There hasn't been a president that committed a crime in the eyes of the House and Congress and Senate which warranted that. I mean, what's his name? Andrew Jackson was impeached. It was sort of a political deal back then. Clinton clearly was impeached on party lines, although it was perjury. Does that rise to the level of a high crime and misdemeanor to be removed from office? Trump was impeached twice, the first time over Ukraine and then second over January 6th. So both times he was impeached. He was accused, indicted of that crime as defined by the House. The problem with impeachment is that
it's meaningless.
It's that the House decides what it means. And the only thing the Constitution says is high crimes and misdemeanors. So they can decide, like they're saying that that he should be impeached for letting Israel.
We're in agreement, except as to the consequences, because if it doesn't go on, and it hasn't in 200 years, led to anybody losing the presidency.
I think that's just because there hasn't been a crime of that magnitude.
We don't know. A lot of people would say, for sure.
See, I think
there's many.
I think if the president committed murder,
many crimes.
I think the Senate might convict him.
But Trump is, in these 91 indictments, there are many crimes that rise to that level. Anyway, the proof is in the pudding. It hasn't been even Nixon wasn't, and if his wasn't a high crime, I don't know what is. Hiding.
Yeah, well, he likely would have been impeached and removed if he didn't resign.
Well, the threat.
Because there were enough Republicans. See, today it's so partisan that it's very hard to get. Look, I mean, January 6th, how many Republicans voted to
I'm saying, but
convict him? 2?
By resigning, he could evade, as he has, and was forgiven by his successor. The deal he made with his successor, with Ford, was he'll resign and you'll
pardoned, yeah.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
What else? We exhausted.
So then the second federal case is the Florida case for the classified documents. It's interesting because in the same way that people say these are political, particularly, the Alvin Bragg case in Manhattan and the Fani Willis and the one where E.G. Carroll with the Letitia James, and not E.G. Carroll, the loans, the fraudulent falsifying financial statements, where he had the big judgment, that people say how political all that is. Here, the other side says the same thing. Judge Cannon is a Trump-appointed federal judge who, somewhat surprisingly, is hung up on all these legal issues and questions relating to admission of evidence and things which somehow miraculously resulted in the trial being indefinitely postponed.
I would disagree with you using the word surprisingly, in light of the fact that till this day, if anything is surprising, is that despite all the evidence, despite even his somebody like Barr, some of his major supporters say Biden won, and surprisingly, notwithstanding all the evidence, notwithstanding 60 different judges that it was brought up in front of, found nothing to change it. They're still, so it doesn't surprise me.
But I can understand. I don't know, appreciate's the right word, but I can understand when I see how Judge Cannon behaves, and my reaction is, boy, that seems kind of political.
Yeah, but it's not surprising. To me, it's obvious.
But I'm saying
a behavior is obvious.
I find it sort of disappointing in how the world works, because and also, as I say, when I can when I hear someone complaining about how, say, the hush money case is so political, I can now understand that person's point of view, in the same way that I would hope they would understand my point of view with Judge Cannon, because here's a federal judge federal judges are usually smart people. Why is this being delayed and twisted around when it really didn't have to be, most legal people, scholars say, and now indefinitely postponed? Seems kind of political. So a Trump supporter would say, of course it's not political. They'll say that Alvin Bragg is political. So I think the answer is they're both political.
You can make it up, because we know that a cannon could blow anything away.
Exactly.
And so she blew away the case. She said she kept delaying it, and
it's not dismissed. It's just indefinite. It's delayed until they can figure out all these questions. But it doesn't mean it's not dismissed. She didn't dismiss it.
She didn't dismiss it.
It's just delayed indefinitely, but that's all they want.
She says we can't. It could be permanently delayed. She says because there's no way to deal with classified information. So, number one, it's delayed long enough that it's not a
that's all they care about, is that it gets just because that one can certainly go away.
It's appropriate. A cannon blew it up.
That one certainly will disappear if Trump's reelected. Then the last one is the criminal case brought by the DA in Georgia, Fani Willis, for election interference. The perfect phone call that asked to find a certain number of votes to swing the election in that state.
By virtue of the fact that there were so many, they use that as evidence that it's just piling on. Maybe he's guilty of something.
What else could it be?
But not 91.
Right. Right.
So it's
an interesting strategy.
Yeah.
It's so much. How could it be real?
And the most interesting thing, it's miraculous that it has no impact on his performance in winning the nomination for Republican president candidate. And apparently, so far, not even in the polls that show that he's ahead of Biden. And he keeps saying Biden's crooked. Biden is the worst president in the history of the United States. Unbelievable.
So, if there's one thing, I think you'll agree with me on this. If there's one thing that Trump is, he's lucky. Because how lucky was he that Fani Willis had an affair with that guy? How lucky was he? Because if she didn't have that affair, this trial might...
You don't have to go to that for his luck. The day he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he says he made it on his own. He was a success. His father gave him $400 million at a time.
It's good luck.
When that's more than billions, or 40 million, but it was some enormous amount. So, yeah.
But it's like he had nothing. I mean, presumably, but I'm assuming he had nothing to do with Fani Willis and her boyfriend. But
I think he might have
set him up. Maybe set him up. Blind date.
No, might have fixed him up. Yeah.
Made a shit up between Fani Willis and the other guy.
What's a shidduch in English? A match.
So I don't know, but it's like it's luck beyond luck, because if that didn't happen, it very likely that case could have been tried, and that's a real case, because that's even if he gets convicted in New York, the penalty is not even super serious. But federal interference.
His brother, that was much younger, passed away. So you need all kind of luck.
Illness?
What?
Illness?
I think he was alcoholic, but I'm not sure.
So, and that, I don't know what, I think Georgia too is just delayed, not for any particular reason, just delayed. So, that one is not a federal case, but, the other two of the four are. So I guess the question, now here's the big question is if Trump gets reelected what does he do in terms of these cases, and what is the retribution that he would do?
It's interesting you talk about retribution because today's testimony that the lawyers for Trump drew out of Cohen, Michael Cohen, is that his book, the name of the book he wrote, is called Revenge. So they say this whole thing is about revenge. It's getting even that he didn't get the appointment at the White House. That's number one. And number two, they asked him how much he's made from the book and from various activities so far. So he said, I think from the book, $400,000. So they're saying, obviously, this guy is saying anything to make more money. So it has nothing to do with Trump. He did it all on his own. And even though the testimony of the first witness, what's the name of that newspaper?
The first guy was David Pecker.
Yeah, what's the name?
National Enquirer.
The Enquirer, right. It was, it couldn't be more damning, more proof. So, well, they said, well, Cohen did that. Why would Cohen do it unless it's his boy? Well, he did it to impress his bosses. Trump wouldn't. What's the word? Bend to that, not bend.
Stoop
to that
level.
Stoop to that level. Trump would never stoop to that level. Even that is accused on January 6th. It's not terrorists, it was tourists. Yeah. They misunderstood the word.
Peaceful protesters.
Right. And the fact is that many people believe that whatever happens in this election, if it winds up, it's still they're both old and they could lose their lives before or get sick before or something. But if it goes to an election and Trump is elected or fails to be elected, either way, it could be devastating for the country. Because if he's elected, they say democracy would be over because we saw that he, and now they know how to do it better, that he wouldn't let Pence show up. I think Congress passed a law that he has to show up, the vice president, and deliver it. And if he loses, you could have worse than, because he's setting it up now. There's no way he could lose. If he loses, it's obviously a fraud. It's this. So very scary, because if whichever way it goes, we're in for problems, unless you don't believe that democracy will end with him, with his election. The threat is there, and maybe it won't happen, but definitely there's a lot of evidence to indicate for somebody to believe that democracy would end.
So what do you think? What form of retribution do you see? I mean, he talks about going after the
retribution by whom?
By Trump. Does he? What's the form though? What does that mean? What form does that take? He hires a special prosecutor to charge Biden with whatever.
He said day one, Biden would be arrested for stealing the election. There's a lot of claims you can make. They've already made it that he got money through his son, you know, whether he'd ever even let Biden go to trial. He would say it's obvious that he's guilty, you know. So, and he doesn't hide it. Whatever he says, he keeps his word. He says, then, you know, what's the worst things he says that he keeps his word about?
Do you think the Supreme Court will let him pardon himself?
I believe that they would. Yes. There's no, there's nothing in the Constitution that says.
If you believe that the president should have a power to pardon, and I'm not so sure. I was thinking about that the other day. If you believe in law and order and that no one is above the law, nobody, why should the president have the power to pardon someone? I don't know. Why? What's the logic in that?
The logic is that people come and make a case that he really shouldn't have been convicted.
But again, that's
it's like governors.
I understand, but I'm not so sure. I concur with that. It's like, what's the purpose of law and order?
I think it's worse than that. I think people buy pardons. There's a guy who went to Switzerland who broke the law. I forget his name. His wife was very active in politics.
Yeah.
And they said because of the large contributions that she made on his behalf and he had made, that he was pardoned. So, you can look, only this last week, Trump said to the oil industry, if you donate $1 billion to me, I'll take care of all your wishes, your desires. I'll give you new permits. I'll let you drill anywhere in the Gulf of Mexico, whatever. And $1 billion for the oil industry is not a tough challenge. So, and he announced it, It's not a secret. He doesn't try to hide things, Other guys do things surreptitiously.
Yep.
He's not afraid. He's not afraid to say what he's going to do. It's the greatest salesman in the history of the country, of the human race, maybe.
But I think
because he says himself, he doesn't check with anybody else or post. He says, I'm the greatest president ever. And then he says, well, maybe Washington or Lincoln. But then he corrects himself. No, he says, I'm even better than Washington and Lincoln. So he testifies, and what he testifies to becomes the truth. Look, he made $5 billion on or more on his Truth Social. How many people make $5 billion, even if he was never a billionaire before, and exaggerated? Look at what and having been president, think of the connections he got and the power he has to make money in the future. Unbelievable. Cohen goes to jail, and he goes to the top of the list of the wealthiest people in the world.
I think we should end the show with the happiness, because everything that we talk about is so depressing that it's at the end of the show that we need the uplifting happiness, because we are about out of time.
Look, I'm going to come and get you if you don't do that. Be happy. If I find out you're not forcing yourself to be happy, to have positive thoughts, not to go to depression, depressive thoughts, not to focus on your disappointments, your failures. Just stay upbeat, love your kids, count your blessings every day. And there are blessings. Just look out at nature. Look out at the fact that your eyes can see and you can enjoy reading and then watching movies. There's so many things to be thankful for if you would just focus on that. Yes, you're going to have adversities, you're going to have major disappointments, even tragedies. But, if you recognize every human being has that, that's life. One rabbi said, the only happy people I know are the people I don't know. Because once you get to know them intimately, you find out what terrible experiences these very people that you think are so happy have gone through or are going through.
Well, what would Woody Allen say?
Life is made up of misery and if you're only miserable, you're lucky. Misery and wait 1 minute. The time is up, but we want to give you the quote from Woody Allen.
One of the things is life is full of misery, loneliness, and suffering, and it's all over much too soon. And then that's not the quote.
No.
It's the one that it's between the miserable and the
like misery and, and disaster. And if you're only miserable, you got to be happy. If you're only miserable, be happy. Anyway, if you want to be happier, get a copy of my book, of your book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. How to be happy no matter what. And you'll see how much it'll lift you up. And especially if you pay attention and start to adopt some of the ideas. And you'll enjoy it just from the jokes that we put in and the humor and
okay,
creativity.
We'll end it with the Woody Allen quote. I feel that life is divided into the horrible and the miserable.
Right.
That's the two categories. The horrible are like, I don't know, terminal cases, blind people, crippled. I don't know how they get through life. It's amazing to me. And the miserable is everyone else. So you should be thankful that you're miserable because that's very lucky to be miserable.
If you're only miserable, you got to be happy.
Okay. We'll be back next
happy,
week.
Please. Otherwise, I'm going to come after you when I find out who you are and you're not behaving in a manner that you're the boss. Remember, you're the boss. And so be the boss. And you're the boss of your own mind and your own attitude. So have a wonderful, happy week, happy life, happy throughout eternity. Every day in your life should be more rewarding, more uplifting, more satisfying, happier than the day before. God bless you. I hope to be with you next Wednesday, 6:30. God bless you. Thanks. Bye.